right, so today we will be doing lessons 4 and 5, and we'll be dealing with how many groups. So we'll start with lesson 4, and we will be dealing with blocks and diagrams, and this will help us with learning about division with fractions. So you're just listening right now. It says some problems that involve equal size groups also involve fractions. Here is an example. How many 1/6s are in 2? We can express it as multiplication or division. So your multiplication is something times 1/6 is 2. Or we could go the opposite way where we have the whole divided by the part, right? So 2 divided by 1/6 makes something. So now these pattern blocks are what we'll be using to kind of help us visualize how these fractions work. If a hexagon represents one whole, so this hexagon here, they're telling you that that's 1. One of the triangles, they're telling you, is 1/6 because 6 triangles make a hexagon. So as you can see, there's 6 different triangles that make up the hexagon. So we can use a triangle to represent 1/6 in the problem. So it says 12 triangles or 2 hexagons. So there's your first one and here's your second one. That makes 12 groups of 1/6. So there would be 2. So if we write 12 in place of the question mark, we would have 12 times 1/6 makes 2. Or we would have 2 divided by 1/6, makes 12. Okay, so we'll practice this. So you're on page 22 in book 4. And we're going to start with number 1. So we will be writing a multiplication and division equation for each one. So 8 $5 bills are worth $40. So the multiplication equation would be this one. So 8 times 5 makes 40. And then the division problem, you would do 40 divided by 5 makes 8. Okay, so that's what you're writing there for number 1. So for number 2, there are 9 thirds in 3 ones. Okay, so what that would be for multiplication is 9 times a third makes 3. That's pretty much the sentence that you just saw. And then you need to kind of flip things around a little bit to make your division problem. So 3, the whole, right, would be divided by 9, and that would make 1/3. Okay, so now for number 3, now you're given a diagram. So this diagram, remember that this here is the whole, right? All 5 boxes make 1. So we would do 5 boxes times 1/5 in each one makes 1 whole. And then this whole, right, this 1, divided by 5, there would be 1/5 in every box. So that's what you'll write for number 3. All right, so now we'll be dealing with these pattern blocks. You'll just kind of be watching and then writing what you see. So you're still on page 22. And here are a few things to remember. So this hexagon is going to count as 1 whole. So that's something to know as we go through this little part. And then they want you to know that 2 triangles make a rhombus. And I'll show you that right now. So we have this rhombus here. And remember, the rhombus is a diamond, right? And if I put this triangle here, that's half of the diamond or half of the rhombus. Okay, so those are just important things to know. Okay, so we'll start on letter A, I believe. Yes, okay. So we're going to do A, B, C, and E on page 22. So for A, they want to know if a hexagon represents a whole, what fraction is 1 triangle? Okay, so I have this hexagon here, and I have the triangle. You kind of saw this when I went over the summary briefly. But right there, that's 1/6 of the whole. So on your notes, you're going to write for A, 1/6. B is the rhombus. Okay, so let me restart here. Now the rhombus, I'm going to put in this hexagon, and that actually ends up being 1/3 of the hexagon. So for B, you should write 1/3. Okay, letter C says the trapezoid. So let me take this away. Now remember the trapezoid is the red one, right? Some kids forget what a trapezoid looks like. So that is half of the hexagon. Okay, so that trapezoid is, I'm going to write it right here, 1/2. So that's C. Now we're going to jump to E, and we're going to do 3 rhombuses. Okay, so here's 1. I already did that one. Here's 2. And then here's a 3rd one. And I'm sure most of you already know the answer, but it makes a hole. So 3 of them make 1 hole. So the answer right there is 1. Okay, so now you're going to turn to page 23. And that's where we're going to go next. So here are Elena's diagrams for 2 and 1/6, or I'm sorry, 2.5 equals 1, and 6 times a third is 2. So this one goes with this little equation, and then this one goes with this equation. So it says, do you think they represent their equation? Well, there are 2 halves making 1 whole. So this one looks good to me. There are 6 pieces. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 thirds. And they make 2 of them. So I say yes. That diagram matches the equation. All right, now you're still on page 23, but we're doing number 4. So answer the following questions. How many 1/2s are in 4? So what you can do is kind of make this an actual square, right? I kind of separated them just so you could visually see it. Now, if I cut that box in half, right? How many do you see now? And the answer should be 8. All right, now for B, how many 2/3 are in 2? So I kind of made little trapezoids here. I made my own little shapes on my little slide. But we got to separate by 2/3. So remember that this is 2/3, this is 2/3, and then these kind of go together. So how many they make are 3. Okay, so there's 3 separate little shapes here. So that's 1 shape, 2 shape, 3 shape, or 3 rhombuses is what it would be if you were to kind of put it together a little better. Okay, so now we're going to move to lesson 5. How many groups? So let's use blocks and diagrams to understand more about division with fractions. So suppose 1 batch of cookies requires 2/3 cup of flour. How many batches can be made with 4 cups of flour? So we can think of the question, how many 2/3 are in 4? And represent it using multiplication and division. So these are your little equations. That's your multiplication equation. That's your division equation. So something times 2/3 is 4, or 4 divided by 2/3 is something. And you could use pattern blocks to kind of separate these, right? So they kind of made one little shape there, this little shape here, this goes here, this goes here, this goes here, and this goes here. So since 3 rhombuses make a hexagon, 1 rhombus represents a third, and 2 rhombuses represent 2/3, right? So we can see that 6 pairs of rhombuses make 4 hexagons. So there's 6 groups, right? And that's what I just made. You can also use another kind of diagram. So you guys aren't going to probably use pattern blocks as you're doing stuff. Most of you will use math, but some of you might like the diagram. So another one that they're showing you can use is something as simple as this. So this is 3/3, right? Or 1 whole. And then they're separating them here, here, these 2, here, these 2, and then here, right? So regardless, you're going to get 6. Okay, so there's 6 groups, however you group them. So reasoning with fraction strips. So you're on page 27 for me, and it says write a fraction or whole numbers to answer the questions. How many halves are in 2? So you see that this is 1 whole, and it kind of ends right here. And then this is another whole. So how many halves are there? I got 1, 2, 3, 4. So your answer for number 1 should be 4. Okay, and then now I'm going to do the same thing. How many 1/5 are in 3? Well, my fraction strips only show 2 wholes, right? So I'm going to look at the 1/5. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. So there are 5 in 1 hole, but I need 3 holes. So 5 times 3 is 15. So that's what you should write for number 2. So now number 3 says, how many 1/8 are in 1 and 1/4? So I'm going to draw my little line right there. And this is your 1 hole, right? So I'm going to look at 8. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? So that's 1 hole. But I got to remember this little 1/4. So these two here make 1/4 of it. So you got to look at how many 8s I have circled. And that answer should be 10. Okay, so now we're on page 27 still. And it says if a trapezoid represents a hole. So now this is going to be just a little bit different than what I did in lesson 4, because now the trapezoid is the hole. So let me restart. And now my 1 hole is this guy there, right? So it's going to be that one. So 1 triangle, let me move 1 triangle into this. Sorry, I'm needing to start all over again here. Okay, so I'll just kind of do that. So 1 triangle is 1/3, right? So I'm going to have to write kind of little for you, but your answer is 1/3. So now 1 rhombus, right? So let me take out this and I'm going to add the rhombus, right? So that rhombus is now taking up 2/3 of it. And then 1 hexagon. So remember earlier we did 2 of these make your hexagon. So the answer would be 2. Okay, now page 28. Diego and Jada were asked how many rhombuses are in a trapezoid. Diego says 1 and 1/3. If I put 1 rhombus on a trapezoid, the leftover shape is a triangle, which is 1/3 of the trapezoid. Jada says, I think it's 1 and 1/2. Since we want to find out how many rhombuses, we should compare the leftover triangle to a rhombus. A triangle is half a rhombus. So Jada is correct. So circle her. And it is because a triangle is half a rhombus. So we can fit 1.5 rhombuses in a trapezoid. Okay, and then this will be our last one. Select all equations that can be used for this equation. How many rhombuses are in a trapezoid? Okay, so it would be B. So something times 2/3 makes 1. Okay, and then our next one, we need to find the equation that looks like this, right? So C would be the other one. So once you find the equation of the multiply, you're kind of looking for the opposite equation for the division. So notice how the hole is here, the hole will then move to over there. That's just kind of a clue for when you guys do your practice right now. Okay, so you guys are going to join the meet and then we'll start the practice.